Well, thank you very much, and I think that was a wise choice not to try and pronounce my surname. So climate change is having increasingly visible impacts on society. Here in the Gulf, temperatures have already risen and will continue to do so. We've seen an increase in severe and unusual weather events, including the UAE facing its heaviest rainfall in 75 years earlier this year. So I've got two esteemed panelists here with me today who know a lot about the topic. So Hassan, turning to you first, what are images from space capturing in terms of some of these environmental changes, both here in the UAE and around the world?
Definitely. I think we can summarize three specific sensors that we're utilizing today. So optical images, these are the normal images that you can capture through your phone, but we're capturing it from space. Two is synthetic aperture radar images. So these are radar images that can send the radar images back, so we can utilize the images day and night, be it cloudy or not cloudy. So it actually covers the weakness of the optical image. And third is the hyperspectral, so thermal imaging and everything. So these are the three key sensors that we can utilize from space. For us, specifically, when it comes to disaster management and for Earth observation in general, and specifically on the environmental side, the synthetic aperture radar data is providing an immense amount of insights. Just to provide examples, so we can utilize the SAR images, synthetic aperture radar images, to understand the vegetation health. So in the agricultural domain, we can look at the stress on certain agricultures, and we can identify the impact on that. This is one. Two, we can look at water sources. So be it the tidal planning for the seashores, submerging underwater, land submerging, and also looking at underground water streams and how that land deformation is impacted. So that's the second thing in water. And third, through both optical imaging and SAR imaging, we can look at urban areas, identifying the utilization of all the different utilities. So from transportation to power to emissions and everything. So all of these different dimensions give us a larger perspective of things. And then we correlate all of that data around to connect them all together, or we stitch all this data together, and we can deduce certain insights that can support decision making and provide certain courses of action.
Brilliant, and that analysis point we'll get to very shortly, because I'm really interested to pick up on that. In the meantime, Manjula, I wanted to ask you, so in terms of these environmental changes that we're seeing, what impacts are they having on businesses? So from a material, reputational, balance sheet perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose two big megatrends are now happening. One is that the same rigor of financial accounting is now happening with sustainability reporting and accounting. The two big regulations that are upon us already is CSRD in Europe. So all European companies now will have to do integrated reporting, and under the IFRS, which is ISSB, is also coming now for Asia, and the Middle East is going to adopt the ISSB framework at large. So what does that mean is that this is the first time we are going to see in reporting value chains, you're going to have your lawyers, you're going to have your auditors, so the claims that are being made have to have a lot more rigor. The second piece of that is that it's not just good enough to do a 200-page sustainability report anymore that sits on your website with some pretty pictures and lots of narrative. This is going to have, again, the need for integrated reporting is crucial. So you're going to see financial and the non-financial, the social and environmental coming together. But we're also going to start to see what we call materiality assessments, which means that you only can disclose what counts based on your size, your sector, and your areas of operation. What that will also mean is that the organizations that want to be part of the value chain or are in the value chain of these corporates, they will have to also prove their sustainability credentials. And so this is kind of the need for rigor, the need for accuracy in data, and the evidence-based claims are now going to be at the forefront of everything that we're going to see in 2025 coming forward. And I want to sort of maybe touch on this big use case, which is the voluntary carbon market, so carbon trading. Right now, we have an issue that you've got the project owner that says, my project's going to sequester this much CO2. You've got 4 auditors that, like the Big Four, but on the voluntary carbon markets, that have to sign that off, and it's a fairly manual process at the moment. And then you've got all the buyers that are wanting to buy that to offset, and that's where it stops, unfortunately. So there was a big due diligence done by a number of publications and analysts last year that showed and proved that over hundreds of billions of carbon credits are now worthless. Why? Because no one continued with the monitoring, reporting, and verification to say, did that project actually do what it said it was going to do? And invariably, actually, it created more damage to those communities, because that's how those projects work, is you'd have to do a trade-off with the indigenous or the community to make that work. And the revenues that was meant to go back to those communities didn't happen. So platforms like, we've been building a monitoring, reporting, verification platform on disclosure, and platforms like Hassan's will now be very important from a geospatial perspective to counterintelligence the data, to say that project was meant to do X, Y, Z. You could have sensors actually saying, did it achieve that? And what are the penalties if it doesn't? Because you've now got someone who's bought that asset. So I don't know if you wanted to...
I think I'm in total agreement, of course, and as data right now from remote sensing and the space data in general is becoming more accurate and higher resolution, there is a way to actually transform this data to become bankable data that can be used for validation. When it comes to VCM, it can be used to certain accreditation as well for certain areas. So it's becoming more consistent as well. So, and of course, later when we talk about the AI side, that can actually provide even further insight. So we can predict, we can be a bit more active instead of reactive to certain cases as well. And we've seen right now, we've done a lot of different examples, but if I just take one example that we have done in 2022. So in 2022, we sponsored a Golden Globe race boat that went across the entire globe. And while he was doing that, we've gathered water samples from across the oceans. And we've obtained, of course, images and everything across. 3 findings that was really, that were very conspicuous to anyone that will see it. One, as he was going through, he noticed certain wildlife changes. So albatross appearing in way norther than they're supposed to be, assuming that that's because of fish in water are changing their location as well, which means water temperature is changing. This is one. 2, the flying fishes or whatever are actually appearing way souther than normal. So that also shows that the biodiversity in that location is also changing due to temperature, due to other impacts as well. This is the second. And third, and most importantly, while he was gathering these water samples, we actually identified microplastics in the furthest southern sides of the South Ocean, which means that waste is actually impacting the entire globe. So to put all these information, to put this global information in the hands of entities like WWG, it becomes a powerful tool for them to force and to move forward.
So 2 great use cases about the importance of data, and within that verifiable data from source. What about the role of AI, positive and or negative, in terms of then analyzing that data?
You want to take this first?
Okay, so this, for anyone who's gone into all of the different panels, AI has always been brought up in every single one. As a technologist, as a sustainability fintech, AI is upon us. I believe there are many positive use cases for its use. But if I can just be a bit controversial, I see 2 kill switches on AI that we need to think about. One is that data privacy. By its very nature, AI has to take your data, your prompt, It has to go into the open source, it has to process it there, it has to bring it back, and then it has to send it back for processing again for the language models to work. That is the nature of AI. Now, I've just come from Saudi Arabia, COP16, and the first kill switch is that breaks every GDPR law. A lot of banks, a lot of fintechs, a lot of regulator entities, even those that will be under these two CSRD ISSBs, won't be allowed to send data out of their countries on behalf of their customers, etc. And any platform today that has embedded AI which has not been containerized to be able to turn it off if the customer needs it to be turned off or the nation needs it to be turned off, that is a big issue. And we already have, we've been in RFPs already where that was the #1 question by the cybersecurity team, saying, okay, it's fantastic that you've got this, can you turn it off? And thankfully, we said yes, it's a toggle, you can turn it off. That's kill switch #1. Kill switch #2 is that there are already platforms, data sovereignty platforms, that have essentially a wallet. That wallet will hold all your data in the public domain. You will then be able to share your data commercially with anyone that wants that data. Those platforms already exist. They're coming out of Silicon Valley now. The millennials and Gen Z will be taking that in spades. And that's the second switch, because obviously, again, AI needs data to be able to create profiles and to be able to create large language models. So those two, for me, are the two biggest risks that we need to be thinking about. And maybe just one final statement on this is that my belief, the technology that can support with this is blockchain. Because you could actually solve all of those issues: data sovereignty, data territorialization, provenance, and then also democratization of that data in containerized on-prem or even on cloud, to support all of that. And then you actually have, and when there is a violation or a cybersecurity breach, you can actually trace that back to source. So that's
Hassan, maybe,
yes,
what about the more
have I been too controversial? And you're like, well, hang on.
We wanted to start this from that perspective because, of course, all these concerns are valid, and it's actually slowing the pace of utilizing AI even in a faster way.
In a real commercial and use case sense,
but if I take the example that we have done within the UAE, so how did we actually come up with the entire AI perspective to become more valid, to become more active and to become useful? First of all, we pushed the envelope on having one sovereign cloud.
Yeah.
And that cloud is categorized from classified sovereign information to government information to commercial information. And all of that is put under the custodianship of the CSC. And I see Dr. Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti here, our chairman of the Cybersecurity Council. So that custodian is ensuring that the data is actually handled the right way with the right data privacy acts.
That's awesome.
First of all, locally within the UAE, and then of course internationally if that package is actually brought up front to other locations. So how do I actually maintain the data the right way? This is one. Two, when it comes to AI, we also understand there is no AI without the neural network.
That's right.
So if I'm going to operate in silos and setting up on-prem systems, I'm going to still operate in silo.
That's right.
So we're accommodating that silo need, but in the meantime, we're saying there are certain amount of information that can be utilized.
Yeah.
So how can I tap into specific information that you have, and I can correlate it with the information from another entity and another entity, then I can create that neural network.
Yeah.
So dealing of how do I actually flow the data between classified and non-classified parameters. And finally, ensuring that I am sitting on top of the best-in-class cybersecurity, which is very important. And thus, the UAE, along with the artificial intelligence push, cybersecurity became the key main important part to go hand in hand with that perspective. So if that is built the right way,
Yep.
you can navigate around how much information I can actually utilize and how much information I can share across. And at the end of the day, it's all about confidence, one, and trust between the entire ecosystem.
Awesome.
So that's a nice note, Hassan, to go on to my next question, because you're talking about how the UAE is doing a great job of future-proofing itself. So now I wanted to end this panel by asking you both, as climate risk experts, looking at the next 5, 10, 15 years, what scares you most, number one? But to end on a more positive note, where do you see the biggest breakthroughs coming in terms of climate risk mitigation?
If you don't mind, I'll start. So with our monitoring so far, especially for the last 2 years, we've seen more disasters and more things happening on regular basis. And you've just mentioned, the rainfall that we've had earlier this year, that we haven't seen this in 75 years. So we've seen the flood that happened in Libya, the earthquake that happened in Syria and Turkey earlier as well last year. We've had actually a rainfall or a flood during July in Fujairah, on our northern side in 2022. So we're seeing these climate changes in action right now. And we're becoming more and more familiar with it. But at the end of the day, if this does not become bankable data that entities like WWG can utilize and can enforce, it's a waste of time. We have to act now. We have to connect the two worlds together from now. So it is a challenge, but we have the tools, we have the means. And the utilization of AI to, one, predict, two, at least try to prevent, and finally, to support the action during the event is quite important. And we've seen this during the event of the rainstorm, for example, how we connected with all of that and made sure that everything is all connected, supporting the first responders on the ground during the event, and then studying the impact after that. And I'm very sorry to take that very long, so I'll keep this.
No, it's okay.
I
She's
can
got
see a
45
big
seconds.
screen here saying, shut it down. I won't talk about what I'm fearful of. I'm really optimistic. I want to talk about some of the big breakthroughs. And the big breakthrough I can see is, so even here in the UAE, the central bank has said that they're going to mobilize $1 trillion AED in sustainable finance by 2030. That is a big goal. But when I ask the bankers and I ask the investors how you're going to do it, they're like, I don't know. And one of the things I think that we can do is radical collaboration now to really help collect this trusted, comparable, timely, evidence-based data that is, as you said, bankable, to be able to then unlock financing at scale. And we need to do less talking, more execution. And I think ecosystems like this can create sandboxes, bring the ecosystem together, everyone working in one mission, one vision, and using 4IR technologies to really, and I would say for good, because without the ethical backbone and the ethical framework, these technologies can all be used for a lot of harm as well, which actually the last panel we're talking about as well. So I think that's my optimism, is that I'm seeing all of the great leaders coming together now to do things at scale and in a collaborative way.
Brilliant. And
oh, look at this.
we're now up, and you ended on the good note of less talk, more action. So let's stick to that and open the stage for the next panel. Thank you so much to you both for sharing your insights, and to our audience.